welcome to another edition of House of Wisdom Lightest and Best Knife Review videos, where we look at the lightest and best knives made by a variety of knife manufacturers. And today we have a special treat. This is the Baby Spinner by Michael Gavko of Gavko Knives. It's not the lightest knife or the smallest knife that Gavko Knives make. I have already reviewed the Micro Mako, which is, I think, one of the lightest and best that he's ever made. However, this is the smallest and lightest version of the spinner. It's called the Baby Spinner, and the difference is the Baby Spinner has a 3¼ inch blade. The regular spinner that Michael Gavko makes has a 3½ inch blade. As you know, if you've ever watched my channel, I like the lighter the better, the more EDC-friendly kind of knives. Well, I bumped this one up. I'd been intending to do a video, but I bumped it up to the front of the list because one of our community, 91 Classic Rock, saw this on a video I made, Knife Storage Methods and Madness, where I looked at different knife storage techniques and showed how I store my knives in Pelican cases. And I pulled this out and he asked if I had reviewed it and would I review it. So I bumped it up. And just a note to you guys, I love it when you make comments. I read them all. My knife channel is a pretty small community, so it's not overwhelming for me to read them all. So if you have a preference or if you want me to review something, just put it on there and I put it to the top of the list, and it makes it more interesting channel for you guys and more fun for me to do, so it's a win-win situation. Well, back to the Baby Spinner. It's made by Michael Gavko from Slovakia, and if you've ever watched one of his videos on YouTube, you know he has a thick accent. He always ends his videos with, "Remember, don't cut yourself." And he's a really colorful character. I wanted to show the original Gavko spinner because a variety of people have made iterations. If you think about all of the knives that have used their design by collaborative efforts from other makers, you can probably count on one hand the number of knives that do that. This had two different makers recently make collaborations and use this design. The first is the Ferrum Forge brothers, the Williamson brothers, and their collaboration, I'll put a picture in the upper right-hand corner, goes for $600 to $650, and it comes in a variety of handle scale forms. And the Custom Knife Factory also made a collaboration with Michael Gavko. Their version costs $300 to $350. I'll pull a picture of it there too so you can kind of see that. So just to say, this version, this design of knife is held in high esteem by the knife community and knife designers and knife makers. So we're going to delve into it and see what it's all about today. We'll talk about the specifications first. The blade is, on the Baby Spinner, 3.25 inches long. As I've mentioned, the regular spinner has a 3½ inch blade. The handle length is 4 inches, giving a total knife length of 7¼ inch long. The weight of the knife is 4 ounces. I'm going to be showing some knives here for comparison to give you an idea, and some of my knives are common knives like the small Sebenza. As you can tell, the small Sebenza is a little smaller, and then another common knife is the Spyderco Delica. The Spyderco Delica is pretty much the same size. The Delica has a little shorter blade, but the handle's longer, and on the Baby Spinner, there's a better blade to handle ratio, so the handle and the blade are approximately the same size, or more the same size than this. And then there's other knives that are less common that I'll show you to kind of improve your knife vocabulary. Here is a Shirogorov Neon Ultralight, and it's approximately the same size as the Gavko Baby Spinner. And then the Riot Wave, which is a little bit larger. And then we will compare it apples to apples, which is the Micro Mako, which is a much smaller knife than the Baby Spinner. I want to take a little time, and now that I've got the Micro Mako, and talking about the Gavko design language. As you can see, there are similarities in the knife. There is a geometric sharp lines that they use. Instead of soft rounded lines, it tends to be geometric and sharp lines. The thumb hole for the knife and the index, the thumb hole is more oblong in shape. There is the flipper tab is contiguous with the index finger cut out. I really like that, so that whenever you grasp the knife, there's not something poking into you. There's a smooth line. And the sharpening ricasso, it looks like he gets a drill and just drills a hole there. It's well done. It's just common that it's smaller than most knives, and it always falls beyond the plunge line, so it's perfectly made. It's just that few designers make it that way. Also, he tends to externally fixate with external screws his clip. And so there's some of the design language in the Gavko knives. We'll start out talking about the blade. Typically, Gavko uses his favorite steel, AEBL steel, in the baby spinners. I've never seen a baby spinner that didn't have it. I have to be honest, because he doesn't put the blade steel type on it, I can't really be for sure, but I'm assuming that it's the AEBL steel. The knife is a clip point blade and has a finish, which is the tree bark on the interior of the thumb hole and then on the spine of the blade. Also, he has this tree bark finish on the flipper tab, so there isn't jimping on the flipper tab, but you get a little bit of traction from that tree bark finish. The tree bark finish extends also on the handle and back spacer, and then he also has it on the front of the knife here. So that's kind of an interesting distinctive in Gavko knives. As I've mentioned, the sharpening ricasso is small and round and looks different than other knives. The method of deployment of the knife is by flipper. There is a generous thumb hole, but the detent is such that the thumb hole is a little difficult to get out. You can get it out, but the detent is so strong that it wasn't made, I don't think, to be used by the flipper hole. You can see the indentations on my thumb that left. So it's really designed to be a flipper. Okay, as you can tell, the flipper tab is posterior to the pivot, and as you guys know, that's not going to give you a great deployment angle. The deployment angle of this is just 30 degrees, so that's not anything really to write home about. But the detent is the king of the forest on this one. It is so strong that it flips really well, but it's not because it has a great deployment angle or positioning of the flipper tab forward. It's because the detent is so strong. The flipper tab is well designed in that it's 45 degree, which is 45 to 60 degrees is my favorite angle for a flipper tab, and the flipper tab is well done. As I've mentioned, it's contiguous with the index finger hole, so it's really well done. I'll talk a little bit about the handle now. The handle is titanium, which has this gray-purple subtle anodization, and I want to contrast it with the Micro Mako, which is a bold, deep purple. This is sort of gray with purple-blue tint to it. It's hard to describe, but it's really nice. I like the way it's done. And it has this tree bark finish, which Michael Gavko does. And there's an intangible here. You would expect this to be rough, but he polishes everything so well and so nicely. This is just joy to run your finger over. It's so smooth. And the tree bark finish looks like it would be rough. It is completely polished and smooth as glass. And that's an intangible that I can feel that you really can't understand. That's why I review it, and you can understand it because I'm going to explain it to you. Well, we've talked about the action and how detent's king, and about the flipper tab and the things that I like about it. The knife runs on bearings. The lock is a frame lock, and the frame lock does not have a lock bar insert or over travel stop, but there's no lock stick whatsoever. It's very well done. The pocket clip on the knife is externally screwed and has a 3D clip that has good retention and is well made and fits stylistically well with the knife. The ergonomics on the knife are great. It has a cutout for your index finger, and then the other fingers flow well into a little curve there, and then a flat knife on the end. Okay, there is a little bit of a cutout so that whenever you release the lock bar, your thumb doesn't have to go into a hole. And I just want to give some of the custom features of the knife. You can tell that when Michael Gavko lowered the show side, that he just had a hand tool, because can you see how irregular that is? It's got like a little bump right there. And it's not a perfect circular radius. It's a little bit long. It's more canoe shaped rather than round like you would expect it to be. And this was done just all with hand tools. And a lot of guys that collect knives like custom knives for that. They don't like knives that are made on CNC machines and that are perfect. They want to have that campy, irregular custom finish. And so that if you're a knife collector that enjoys custom knives because you want it to be done with hand tools, then go ahead and do that. I just mentioned this because I want you to take note of it. On the signage on the knife, this is a Gavko knife. It has the Gavko maker's mark here on the blade, and then it also has it on the clip with USA on the clip too. As you know, I don't like usually a lot of signage on the knife. However, I felt myself a little out of sorts with this knife because I really couldn't state firmly that this is the maker's favorite steel, AEBL steel, because it wasn't noted on the blade. So I think just shout out to the makers. It's okay to put your blade steel on the knife because so many makers make a knife and then they put an upgraded blade steel. You can never really be sure about it. So we can just assume that it's AEBL steel. So what do I like about the Gavko Baby Spinner? I like a lot of it. Are there opportunities for improvement? Certainly. It doesn't have a over travel stop or a lock bar insert. Even though this doesn't have any lock bar stick, I think they should be standard in modern knives. And they could have internally fixed the pocket clip. I'll give you an example. The Shirogorov, they internally fixed the pocket clip. Look how clean and sleek and uncluttered the clip side of the knife is compared to, you have 4 screws here for the back spacer and then the lock bar clip. Riot knives also did the same thing, blindly affixing their pocket clip from the inside. There's a reason that Todd Beggs and Liang Ma uses Riot knives. They really have high quality. And I like the Gavko spinner too, the baby spinner. I like it because it feels great in your hand. With the finish and the smoothness and polishing off, even the tree bark finish there, really feels great in your hand. And I like it because it's custom, it's unique, it's distinctive in design. And it's a design that others want to copy and make their own iteration of. So if you want to see what all the fuss is about while Ferrum Forge and Custom Knives Factory are doing midtechs on the spinner, then get a spinner or a baby spinner. I personally prefer the baby spinner because it's 3 1/4 inch blade instead of a 3 1/2 inch blade. It's easier to EDC. Well, that's it for the video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment in the comments section. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the baby spinner. And remember, don't cut yourself.